we bring in a friend who we've known for years and years and years. He's an author, relationship therapist, Dr. R.G. Alan Wilson.
Some expert advice on how we can all talk to them. Joining us now is relationship expert Dr. R.G. Alan Wilson. She's the author of Courageous Conversations Connect. Good morning, R.G.
Doctor, good morning. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning, Janelle. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
And as we mentioned, a lot of people just dealing with anxiety during all of this. What are your suggestions?
Some of the things that we need to remember is that this is temporary. This is temporary inconvenience for long-term gain. And as long as we stay healthy, Janelle, then everything else is recoverable.
Talk to your children about what's happening right now. What are the best ways to do that?
There's some do's and don'ts, right? So you want to tell them that you're going to be here. We're going to be okay. Kids want to know that they're secure and they're safe. So predictability, structure, and consistency. You also want to let them know you have a plan. And even if you don't have a plan, tell them that you're working on one. And good morning, everyone. This is Dr. RG. It is April 7th, 2020. This is the 8th week of our quarantine. I believe it's day 33. And this is the Courageous Conversations Connect space where we're having our quarantine talk. So I'm just happy to be here. The sun is out in Philadelphia. Tell me where you're coming from or where you are viewing this broadcast from. It may be, hopefully it's wonderful weather where you're at too. Good morning, IG family. Good morning, my Facebook family, as well as my YouTube family. I'm just happy to be here. So I hope that you are too. This is the place where we have our crew meetup, our connecting relationships for epic wins. So we're going to have a great discussion today. We're specifically talking about fear and anxiety, but I really want to do a twist on it and talk about looking out for the strong people, especially around loss. This is Mental Health Awareness Month. And so we're going to have a great conversation, a lot of engagement. And I want you to make sure that you share this, make sure that you give your thumbs up, your smiley faces and your hearts for the algorithms, and also go over to that YouTube page and subscribe, as well as the Facebook page, and subscribe and hit the notification buttons. We're going to take a quick break from our sponsors and we'll be right back. So stay with us. Matters. Good morning. This is Dr. RG here. And this morning we are talking about our fears, our phobias, but we're also integrating loss. And I really want to talk, quite frankly, to our crew, which is connecting relationships for epic wins. I want to talk specifically to the strong ones out there. You all know who you are. We know who we are. Who are the strong ones out there that everyone goes to, right? Everyone goes to them, to you, about your fears, about your phobias in the midst of this pandemic, about how to fix things. We are the rescuers. We are the mediators. We are the ones that actually, like Olivia Pope, fixes everything, the fixers. And yet we have our own fears. We have our own phobias. We have our own anxiety and our own worry. We have our own losses, right? And I want to really dig into the various types of losses, especially going into Mother's Day for those persons who may have lost their mothers, or maybe they're dealing with the loss of, the idea, if you will, of motherhood. Or the idea of perhaps something that they wanted that they realize is not going to come to realization. And now they have to kind of recalibrate and re-innovate, figure out what that looks like. But specifically, we want to talk to the strong ones. So good morning, Charlotte. Thanks for joining. Good morning, IG family, our Facebook family, our YouTube family. Please make sure that you go over to the YouTube page if you haven't yet and hit the subscribe button. We would appreciate that, as along with hitting the notification, subscribe and hit the notification button. Also, please go over to Facebook and type subscribe in the message box. And those are for notifications for special events, for promotions, all those things that will help you to get notified of what we're doing. That those things help us to make sure. And you also can, let us know what you want us to talk about as we move into the next week. We're supposed to be, the cities are opening up gradually, if you will. So we're going to be moving, we prayerfully so, behind our quarantine. And when we do, we're going to come to you and ask you what you want us to talk about. If we, it might be life after quarantine. It might be how do we recalibrate and reintegrate ourselves into the community? What are the do's and don'ts? What are how do we navigate all of that? How do we make sense, quite frankly, out of some of the things that we're seeing? I have seen some very distressing things in the last couple of days. I'm not sure if you all saw at the Family Dollar, one of the young men who had a family was working there and asked someone to put a mask on, and the woman left and brought her family back, and they killed this man. I also saw where a person was at a resort kind of place, maybe it was a lake or something, and he simply asked the persons that were there to keep their social distance, and they pushed him. He was the person that was supposed to be law enforcement. They pushed him in the water. And so, I'm thinking, I thought we were supposed to be leveling up on kindness. I thought we were supposed to be leveling up on peace and serenity and care and the ways in which we treat each other, because we're all in this together. And if anything, perhaps this should have taught us that this virus doesn't really care about our differences. What this virus cares about is if we all band together and do the necessary things that we have to do, then that's going to help us to be stronger together, not further apart. So those things are kind of distressing to me. I'm not sure how you all feel about that, or if you've seen those kinds of engagements or behavior. Really, we combat or fight this virus by fighting to stay connected versus disconnected. So those are things that I've seen in the media recently, and I've leveled up on my prayer life. Morgan and I have leveled up on our prayer life in order to, one, stay connected as we continue to do this work. And also we're prayerful for those persons out there that are being impacted. Of course, our essential workers. In case you all haven't gone over to the Instagram page for Nicole and Kenyatta Black, please do so. They're doing a giveaway for mothers specifically that are essential workers. So please go over to their IG page or their Facebook page and do a 200-word essay. It's not that long, for somebody that that you feel might be really deserving of a beautiful piece of jewelry for their Mother's Day, and a way to honor them in the work that they're doing. Also, go over to make sure that you go over to my good friend Candy Manning, her page, because she's actually doing an initiative to save prom. It's called Save Prom 2K20, and anyone who has already got their dress or their tux and they're feeling badly because the prom is canceled, well, guess what? They actually don't have to be canceled, because Candy Manning is going to be setting up a location, and it'll be socially distant. You'll stay in your car, you'll get a text, and then you'll come out and she'll take a beautiful photo of you and your date, or even your family that has been together anyway, so you don't necessarily have to social distance from your family that lives in the same house. So definitely check her out, and make sure that you give her some love. She is also a teacher, and this is this is a Teachers Appreciation Week, along with Nurses Appreciation Week. So if you know a teacher, if you know a nurse, if you know someone that is out there doing this work, and even for the teachers, they're on the front lines too, but they're doing it differently because they're doing online work. But some of those teachers have families as well. So that's been very difficult for them. Give them some love, the teachers and the nurses, and let them know that we appreciate what they're doing. All right. So those were just a few things that I wanted to bring to your attention as we begin our quarantine talk. So for those of you who are just signing on, I'm Dr. RG. This is our Courageous Conversations Connect space, and this is our quarantine talks. Every day, Monday through Friday, we come to you at 10 a.m. to create a safe place for our crew, connecting relationships for epic wins. That's what CREW stands for. To have our quarantine talks where we talk about a myriad of issues that have to do with us, and it has to do with how we're navigating this pandemic, how we're navigating being in quarantine, and what that looks like. We talk about our hopes and our dreams for the future post this pandemic, but also how we perhaps are feeling, if you will, in the midst of this pandemic, right? And so today, as we move forward, we're going to be talking about our fear and our phobias. And specifically, we're going to be paying attention to the strong ones, right? You know those persons. It may be you. Are you either touching base or tapping into someone who's been there for you or your entire family, who's been a bit of a rescuer, someone who tends to be the fixer? Those are people that need help too, right? And the thing about the strong ones is that they don't always ask for help. It's okay to ask for help, but often they don't. So we need to reach out to them, ask them how they're doing for a change. And we're going to be talking specifically about loss. All right. So let's get into our posture. For those of you who are just signing on, this is what we do every morning as we begin our process. Once we kind of talk about the trending things that are going on in the world, we get into our posture, back straight, we loosen up, we put our middle finger to our thumb. If that posture feels good for you, if not, you put your hands over, one hand over the next and put it on your lap or to the side. Make sure that your feet are straight so that you kind of balance your body. And then we begin to breathe, right? We want you to share who you're breathing for and who you're breathing with. It can be your family. It can be an essential worker. It can be the persons on the front line. It can be someone that maybe has either gotten sick from COVID and perhaps still in the hospital that's having difficulty breathing, or someone who you know has lost a loved one and they're having difficulty being challenged with that enormous loss and the uncertainty of it all. So we take a deep breath at the sound of my voice through the nose, right? A really big breath. We try to hold it for 10 seconds and then we let it out. We do that 5 times so that you get all that oxygen into your lungs and we breathe out the carbon dioxide. But while we're doing that, and maybe make sure that you tell us who you're breathing for. While we're doing that, we're also breathing in all of the goodness, right? The serenity and peace and love and joy, those things that we want to imprint into our brains, into our minds, bodies, and spirits as we go through the day. And then we're breathing out worry, fear, anxiety, frustration, any uncertainty. We're breathing that out so that we're not holding that in our bodies. Okay? Right. With the sound of my voice, good morning, everyone. Those are people who are still signing in. I want you to, when I count to 3, breathe in through the nose, hold it for 10 seconds, and out through the mouth. 1, 2, 3. Breathe in. And out. Very good. Breathe in. And out. Excellent. Stay with me, IG family, Facebook, YouTube. Breathe in. And out through the mouth. Breathe in. and out. One last time, make it count. Breathe in. And out. That felt good. So as we do this in the morning, one of the things I want you guys to remember is that you can do this throughout the day, right? And that will help you to build your lung capacity, but also to help you to be centered in a space of breathing in good energy and breathing out not negative energy. Jeanette says, good morning. I missed your segment last night with the deltas last night. Will it be posted on your YouTube page? That's a good question, Jeanette. I'm sorry that Jeanette, I'm sorry you missed it. I'm not sure, but I will check in with my sorors who are the co-chairs of the Physical and Mental Health Committee and find out if it's going to be posted. And if we can get the post, then I will repost. Absolutely. But thank you for joining us this morning. I appreciate it. Good morning, Billy Joe. Good morning, Charla. Marcia, I see you. Good morning. Good morning, my IG family. Megan says, I'm breathing for all the people experiencing their first Mother's Day without their mother. Thank you, Megan, for that. That's absolutely important. Breathing for my family and friends, Marcia says. Thank you. Yeah, it's important. For those of you who were here yesterday, I shared the story of my first Mother's Day without my mom, right? And I can't even remember what we did. All I know is that I wanted to just go and hide. That's what I wanted to do. I didn't want to come out. I think we did something for my sisters and I wanted to celebrate them as mothers. But at the same time, I just wanted the day to be over because I didn't know how I would feel. I made it through, by the way. And you will too, for all of those people who are experiencing the first Mother's Day without their mother. What I can tell you is that if you had a great mother, love, just appreciate all the wonderful years that you had with her. If you still have a mother, oh my goodness, love on her, give her roses while she's here, enjoy her, spend quality time with her. And if you cannot, because of social distancing and because you don't want to put her in harm's way, do your Zoom party or your watch party or your engagement with her. Make sure that you send some balloons over to the house or send some gifts and, just make sure that she knows that she is loved. And if you didn't have a mother, perhaps that was available to you or what have you, forgiveness is always available to every single one of us. And as we forgive, we did a piece a while back on forgiveness. We'll probably cycle because I don't think you can talk about forgiveness enough. It is a freeing experience. It is a wonderful gift that I believe God gives to us to release us from any angst, any hurt, any pain, quite frankly, that keeps us bound and quite frankly keeps us from living our best lives. So I thank you for sharing that with us, Megan, with regards to any of those persons who have lost their Mother's Day, their mothers during Mother's Day. I wanted to read this piece to you. I read something from this yesterday. It's called Good Grief by Granger E. Westberg. Good Grief. He does a lot of work on grief. And this talks about how we express emotion, right? You all know that I always say, if you're going to be dealing with your fear and your anxiety, if you're going to be dealing with grief and loss, in order to heal, you have to feel. But you cannot heal what you do not reveal. So you have to express it. And too often in our community, quite frankly, we don't do enough of the expression of our feelings. We do two emotions. We do mad and sad. And if we don't want to feel sad, then we just go to mad, which is really not a primary emotion, but it masks as a primary emotion. It's really a secondary emotion. And what's really primary is the hurt and the disappointment and the pain, all of that. And we cover that up with anger sometimes because we don't want to feel the sadness and the pain. So this talks about stage 2 and emotion. It says emotional release comes at about the time it begins to dawn upon us how dreadful this loss is. Sometimes without warning, there wells up within us an uncontrollable urge to express grief. And this is exactly what we ought to do. Allow ourselves to express the emotions we actually feel. We have been given tear glands. How about that? And we are supposed to use them when we have good reason to use them, right? We've been given tear glands. There's a reason that we have these opportunities to express our emotion through tear and externalize perhaps that pain. He goes on to say, when we speak about emotional release, it reminds us of the whole subject of emotions and our faith. To some people, it may sound strange in a day of scientific objectivity and the coldness that we should encourage the expression of emotions. Are we saying that religion perhaps should advocate emotionalism? No, but neither are we in favor of an emotionless religion. Emotion is essential to a person to try to repress, and I'm sorry, let me read that again. Emotion is essential to a person, and to try to repress it is to make one less of a person. So we're talking about emotions today for sure, because you can't talk about fear and phobia and loss and grief and leave out the conversation on emotion. How about you? We talked many times about how we turn pain into power when we appreciate the process, right? And what is your process? I want to hear from you all. Have you experienced a process? Are you one of those strong ones, right, that doesn't ask for help? Are you one of those strong ones that are either living alone or having to process by yourself the pain that you've experienced due to any particular loss, whether it be a parent or whether it be a friend or a sibling, either due to COVID-19 or prior to COVID-19? Are you the person perhaps that is there for everyone else? You're the one that checks in. Quite frankly, I've been checking in with my friends and I have a very, very long day, but at least 2 times to 3 times a day, I'm texting or calling or during my breaks in the morning or in the evening to check in on my friends. Why? Because guess what? Most of my friends are the strong ones. They're the ones that we're looking out for each other, because there's very few people in our space that are kind of always looking out for us. And so I'm just checking on them. How are you doing? Most of those strong people tend to not give themselves permission to feel, nor do they give themselves permission to ask for help. They tend to be the givers. That's automatic. But in the world that we live in, we have in some ways more takers than actually givers. So in your story, because of course everybody does have one, if you can sort of evaluate where you were probably maybe 2 months ago, 8 weeks ago, when this COVID-19 first hit, so they say, we think it was here way before then. Where were you and where are you now? Are you getting the support that you need? Are you dealing with your own fears and anxiety? In our talk last night, with the Deltas, there were several people that specifically talked about the fact that they owned their emotion. They said that they were sad, that they missed people, that they were not always so kind to themselves, or they had begun to turn to perhaps food, or I did a piece last week on people that were starting to drink too much, looking for other kinds of vices to anesthetize their pain. And what I'm here to tell you is that you don't have to turn to these unhealthy sources. We can level up together on even being healthier by utilizing each other. That's what this platform is all about. Tell me more about if you have actually begun to do the work. If you are the strong one, and quite frankly, if you are not comfortable with sharing on this platform because you feel like you want your own anonymity, if you will, you can DM Morgan. He's the producer of this show, and he will share that information with us in terms of a question confidentially, so that you will, still get your question answered, but quite frankly, still. Oh, gotcha. Okay. DM me on Facebook, so that in the messenger. Gotcha. So DM me on Facebook if you want to ask a question or you want to share something and you want it to be confidential, but you still want to get it out on this platform so that it can help you and help other people. That would be awesome. Tell me if you have a story during this period of time where you have been the strong one, where you are dealing with grief or extreme loss. Remember, we talked about multiple forms of grief yesterday. We talked about anticipatory grief, where you're anticipating more loss. We talked about cumulative grief, where it's the accumulation of multiple forms of grief all at the same time. Grief of a loss of your identity, loss of the life that you had, loss of a job, loss of your finances, loss of a loved one, loss of your own personal space. If you're living in a house with multiple people and you don't have space, that's cumulative grief, right? And then there's that secondary grief where you've had multiple loved ones that have passed on and you didn't see that coming. And there's this disenfranchisement grief where everyone is grieving the loss that we're all collectively experiencing of the norm, what our norm was, how that was. And most people don't really want to accept it. And it's in the lack of accepting that we're in a new place that causes the resistance and sometimes the anger and the frustration. And oftentimes it causes us to make poor choices, make the wrong decisions, to go out and put ourselves in harm's way. I think I said yesterday that Dr. Fauci said, how much death and suffering are you willing to accept in order to get back to whatever you thought was your normal life sooner rather than later? I think that's a question that we all have to ask ourselves and then hold ourselves accountable for our own behaviors and, quite frankly, the behaviors of others, holding each other accountable, our brothers and sisters keepers, and supporting each other through this pandemic. So we're going to come right back. We're going to take a quick break with our sponsors, and we'll be right back. So stay with us. We got a lot to talk about. Awesome. Welcome back. This is Dr. RG. And so we were just checking in with our RG family, and someone said that they are learning more and more as the person who is the strong one to reach out and ask for help and tell their friends what they need. That's something that we typically don't do.
That's Ty.
Oh, Ty.
Sorry, Ty.
Good morning, Ty. Good morning, beautiful. Thank you for joining me on the IG platform, IG family. Thank you for joining us, Facebook family and YouTube family. If you haven't yet, for those of you who didn't, just came on the platform, going over to the YouTube page either before, during, or after this broadcast, and subscribe to our YouTube page is Ask Dr. RG, AskDrArgie, and hit the notification button. Also, go on over to the Facebook page and hit the subscribe in the message box, or type subscribe in the message box on Facebook, and that's going to give you the notifications as well as all the promotions that we're doing. So Ty had said that, we're talking specifically in this topic today about the strong one, right? Who is the strong person in your life? Are you that strong person that you're there for everyone else and you don't ask for help? Are you the person that needs to learn that in order to continue to pour out, and again, shout out for the mental health professionals that are doing this work, because we are here perhaps in safe places. So that's a blessing in and of itself, with the teletherapy that we're able to do and the telecoaching that we're able to do. But there's still ways in which we are absorbing a lot of that trauma. Most people call it post-traumatic stress disorder. I call it continual traumatic stress disorder. We're dealing with people who are experiencing trauma, and then we're absorbing the trauma. And so we need to be able to find places and spaces where we can externalize that emotion as well. It really is okay to show people or to ask for help and to express that perhaps we're not even having a great day, and take a time out. We tell everybody else, right, Ty? We tell everybody else, and Dr. Gail would know this too, as a mental health professional, we tell everyone else to take time out. We tell everyone else to take a mental health day. We tell everyone else to do their relaxation, right? That they shouldn't go through their day without doing, as I said, the 5 M's, mindfulness, meditation, movement, get your body moving, meaningful engagement, and then of course music. Somebody had said last night that music makes them feel really good and happy. And so doubling down on making sure that whatever types of music you like that gives you serenity and peace and joy, that you listen to that. So we share those things with other people, but sometimes, if we're honest, we don't really take our own advice. We don't have a confidant or someone. Sometimes we don't even have our own therapist, but quite frankly, I think every therapist needs their therapist, right? They need someone to help them be grounded, or they need perhaps maybe even platforms like this to be able to process what they're going through. So, if you have, for those of you, I'm even wondering if you struggle with helping someone who doesn't feel like they need your help. Maybe it's the strong person who is experiencing loss and you can see them spiraling because they're actually overwhelming themselves and they're not able. Have you all had that experience out there? I often, since I've heard about the story, talk about Dr. Lauren Bren, who was an ER director at one of the hospitals in New York. And she came down with COVID, she recovered for a week and a half, which was not enough time, in my opinion, and went back to work because she wanted to get back in the fight with her co-laborers in the medical profession. And that was noble, but it wasn't efficient, it wasn't helpful to her. And they realized pretty quickly that she was not doing well and sent her home, and her family came to get her. And she was going to do her convalescence at home at her family's house. And she committed suicide 2 Sundays ago. And that is a tragic story of what happens with some persons who have overwhelmed themselves. We still don't know, by the way, the extent to which this virus impacts not just our lung capacity, but our heart. I've heard stories where it creates inflammation. It is infecting the vessels that are connected to the heart. And it also has created some cognitive deficiencies. So it may be affecting the brain. Your mind, body, and spirit is all connected. And so if this virus is in your body, it's not going to have like a barrier, if you will, to say, okay, I'm not going to go to that part of your body. So depending on who you are and how your body structure, your body is structured, it may affect all parts. But the point is that someone as strong as this woman, Dr. Bren, there are many people out there like her. And when we, as the strong ones, are doing this work as essential workers, as frontline workers, as persons that are really like the firefighters that go into a burning building when everybody else is running out, we're going in. Whether if it's a mental health professional, when everybody else is not wanting to deal with the hard issues with our families and our individuals and our couples that we're working in, we're the ones that are going into that space and creating safe and confidential spaces for them to be able to process. But we have to also give ourselves permission to do the same. So tell me if that resonates with you, if you are experiencing something similar to that yourself. Tell me if you are trying to get someone to take better care of themselves. Self-care, it's a thing, right? Right about now, everyone needs to be putting their oxygen mask on first. Everyone needs to be experiencing or giving themselves permission to engage in self-care. What's your self-care plan look like? I'm curious to hear that. Has your fear dissipated as the weeks have gone on because you've leveled up on your self-care? Are you journaling? Are you breathing? Are you doing meditation or mindfulness or maybe even yoga? Those are things that can, help you, even stretching your body. Are you able to talk to people? Do you have a confidant, a therapist, a spiritual advisor, somebody that you can just process that doesn't, as soon as you call them, start talking about themselves? Y'all ever have that person you thought was a confidant and you call them for your issue and then somehow it turns around to their issue and now you've spent 2 hours talking about them? that's not the person that you want to have on your short list of people as a confidant. So sometimes we need to reevaluate or relocate the people in our lives so that those persons that are our go-to persons are higher on the list when they demonstrated that they can be available to us. Dr. Gale says, as the days, months, and years pass, and as those emotions resurface as a consequence of memories and triggers, it just validates the attachment or bond is still strong. Thank you so much, Dr. Gale, for that statement. Yes, it does. I said that Vice President Joe Biden says that when you're dealing with grief and loss, that over time, you will, that tear that comes to your eye immediately will subside a little bit, and a smile will come to your face before the tear comes to your eye. The tear may still come, but even those emotions they validate the attachment, the relationship that you had, which is very, very true. Morgan?
Yeah, Ty says, that's one of the hardest things for me to do, take a time out. I'm very purposefully working on that, skin to skin time with God.
Nice. I like that. Ty says, taking the time out. How many of you do that? How many of us do that? Sometimes what happens is the persons that really feel connected with what's happening during this pandemic, we tend to operate in our purpose, which is phenomenal, but we forget about ourselves in that process. Remember, this pain, we turn pain into power when we appreciate the process, but also the purpose of this work that we're doing requires that we really tap into where we are maybe not doing so well, where we are needing a break or some rest or a time out, and we need to be kind to ourselves. We need to do that. That's extremely important. Megan says self-care plan, mindfulness, meditation, yoga, dancing, gong meditation, yoga, dancing, therapy, working out, journaling, sex, and giving financial control. Sex, giving, and financial control. Awesome. Awesome. So listen, that is a great self-care plan, like all of that, including the sex part, right? We definitely need that sexual for those people who are able to, because they do have a viable partner with them, enjoy that, that engagement. Financial control, those kinds of things. All of those things are really good. I definitely want to hear what are your other self-care plans that you have established for yourself. I think, quite frankly, that the people who are givers have really even taken this SSR very seriously, but they've also kind of given that to other people and didn't level up on it for themselves. Y'all remember what the SSR is, right? The safety care plan, the self-care plan, and then the relational care plan. Those things are extremely important for you all to level up on. And Megan is reminding us of her self-care plan and how she's utilized that for herself to not just to grow and to develop and to just be okay. Quite frankly, this is a very stressful time for most of us. I'm not sure that I've engaged with anyone that has not experienced some level of anxiety. And you can tweak or alter your plans, right? Your POA, your plan, your SMART plan, or your plan of action, if you will, you can tweak that. If it's not working for you, or if you feel like it's becomes a little bit stale, tweak it. Ask your confidant what they think about that. What are the, maybe start exploring some of the things now that the weather is getting better that you didn't put on your plan, your self-care plan, maybe 2 months ago, but that you can put that on your plan now. Like my gardening, that's definitely going on my self-care plan. I find gardening therapeutic. I need to figure out when is the time that I can do it and get some seeds and some flowers and, go dig in the dirt. But I'm definitely planning on doing that. So thank you so much, Megan, for sharing about your self-care plan. What about you guys? Hey, Ruth Ann, I see you. Thank you for joining. What else? What is your self-care plan? What's in there for you? Have you really evaluated if it's working? If you created one before and it's not working for you? Do you even have a relational care plan? That's extremely important for people that are either in relationships in the same house or relationships outside of their home? And do you have a plan for the transition of quarantine? We'll probably be talking a little bit more about that next week, because as the cities start opening back up, once many of us have gotten accustomed to being home, may have to really figure out how I'm going to transition to going back out again. Ruth Ann says beach. That's her self-care plan. So thank you for that, Ruth Ann. I went yesterday and it was amazing. That's wonderful. Now, the beach is my place. Morgan and I love the beach. I will say that I have a little bit of anxiety going to the beach these days, because, we really do need to be careful about this virus, that it's still out there. And so keeping our social distancing, I think, is extremely important. Basil says, I started working out and eating well, praying that bad habits go away. I love that, right? Now, the only way the bad habits are going to go away, Basil, is if we help it out by creating new habits. And as the new habits elevate, the bad habits decrease, if you will. Hey, Mama Scopes, she's on. Thank you for joining. Mama Scopes, Nicole with the K says, I paint, taking my easel to the lake. Oh, the lake. Twice a week to spend some alone time, yoga with my daughters outside, the beach with my husband. Oh, that sounds divine. I have actually thought about painting. We have a good friend, Bilal Kayoun, that actually has recaptured his gift for painting too. And I had to repost some of his pictures as well. He's now putting them in print, and probably they're for sale. So painting is a wonderful thing. I've even had some clients that have tapped back into their painting. So Mama Skokes, I'd love to see some of your paintings. Please make sure that Morgan and I get them. Ruth Ann says, nobody was there. I went early. Gotcha, Ruth Ann. She went early, so nobody was there. So that's kind of nice if you can go really, really early in the morning and commune with nature and the water and the sand, and not really worry too much about the social distancing because it hasn't gotten crowded. That's awesome. Basil says, I concur. Awesome. So, when we think about this topic, for Facebook only. Okay, gotcha. It's very tiny. So please make sure that you guys subscribe to the message box in Facebook for the notifications of special events and promotions. It's Facebook only that they have that's available to you right now. I think by next week, it may be available to you on YouTube and IG as well. Okay. So this concept that we're talking about as far as the strong one, how many of you all are the strong ones? I'm going to raise my hand. I feel like I'm the strong one. I've always been that person in my family and within the context of my friends. But by the way, all of my friends are the strong one. We just all, I think, gravitate towards one another. So what happens is, in our little crew, we look out for each other, because we talk so much about the fact that oftentimes there's not a whole lot of people that are paying attention to us. They're typically calling, right? But they're really calling for maybe advice or for us to help them with something. So we kind of check on each other, and we'll just say, like, how you doing? And we, interestingly enough, we kind of know the tone. So just when you get to know a person, if they pick up the phone and, they're upbeat or they're not upbeat, we can really tap into that. If you don't have someone that's looking out for you, right, then how are you looking out for yourself? What are the fears that you have either experienced over this course of this 8 weeks? If you have experienced fears, that's okay. I say to give yourself permission to feel. In order to heal, you have to feel. You cannot heal what you don't reveal. So those fears are real. I often say that we either have to forget, this is how you win with fear. You face everything and remain, or you could forget everything and run, and that won't help you with your fears. We have to face those fears, identify those fears, acknowledge what they are, and then begin to do some things that will help us to dissipate those fears, right? The fears are real, but guess what? Faith is real too. And when we engage in faith about how we're going to grow through this experience, that can help us to dissipate some of those fears. So if you all have had those fears, even phobias, right? There's many phobias that have come out of this experience. Phobias for people who don't want to go outside now. People never had a problem going outside before, but now they're not wanting to go outside, or they're feeling claustrophobic, if you will, in the home because they've been in the house for so long. Those things are important.
I have a question for the audience. Now that the country's trying to open back up, and many of the states are really opening back up, I'm curious to know how they feel, if the audience feels that we're opening back up too soon.
Good question. Good question. So Morgan was saying he had a question about whether or not you guys feel that any anxiety related to the country opening back up too soon, and if that is impacting you personally, or you relationally, or with your family. Do you feel different than your family member where they're ready to get out and you're sort of hunkered down still trying to see what's going to happen? Mama Scope says, Nicole says, anxiety and fear about COVID and their uncertainty are just starting to work into my thoughts and head. Gotcha. Understandable. And I think that's for a lot of people, right? I think that people felt that they were more safe at home, right? And they were able to. Remember, I started off by saying you're not stuck at home, you're safe at home. So that was a reframe. And so now that people are starting to, Morgan's point, open these cities back up, we are faced with how do we navigate our own fear and anxiety about that? Do we feel that what information they're saying is true, that perhaps there may be a second wave to this? Initially, we heard lots of myths, like this virus doesn't spread in the heat. But we know that there are places in the country, in the world, quite frankly, where the virus is elevating and it's hot. So that can't possibly be true. There are also just ideas about like what is okay and what is not okay. I saw a picture of people in Central Park over the weekend because the weather was so nice, and they were all kind of on their little blankets, and they called themselves socially distancing. I guess they were with the people that they knew, but I thought to myself, are all those people that are on that blanket in the same house? Or did they just feel that because they were friends, they were okay because they were in their own homes and then they came out into the park? But this virus is still out there. And the scary part is that you don't see it, right? And that people spread it or they transmit it asymptomatically. They are asymptomatic. They may never have a symptom, and then they are still able to be carriers and spreaders of this virus. So we still have to be careful. I don't think that it's time to relax our being prudent about our health, our well-being, how we operate, our safety care plan. I don't think that we should relax it, but I also think that we need to make good decisions. And this is why we're having a conversation. Please make sure that you like and share. This helps with algorithms. Send me the thumbs up, the smiley faces, and the hearts. That definitely helps with the algorithms. Going over to YouTube, if you can, and subscribe and hit the notification button. Also going over to Facebook if you're not, and type subscribe in the message box on Facebook. Those will allow you to get notifications for all of our promotions and special events and things that we're actually doing. So this, when we think about our fears, I think that people have a stigma. That's why sometimes they don't talk about what they're fearful of, or they feel like people are going to judge them, especially the strong people. I think that, quite frankly, the strong ones, looking out for the strong ones, if you can today, this could be something that you could do for someone else. Not only you could do it for a teacher or a nurse, because they certainly did not go into that profession because they weren't strong, right? So those nurses are out there, medical professionals, essential workers. Perhaps you can just send them a nice text. Just checking in on you to see that you're okay. If there's anything I can do, I'm praying for you. That's a nice way to look out for someone. And also, as Ty mentioned on IG, if you are feeling like you need some additional support, give yourself permission to say, hey, I was having a conversation with Dr. RG this morning, and she suggested that I share with you that, I might need some additional support. Could you just check in on me every once in a while Ask me if I'm okay. That's okay. People would be surprised sometimes, because the truth is, guys, I think that we teach people how to treat us, right? I think we teach people how to treat us. And so sometimes I, years ago, found myself wondering, why don't people call me enough and ask me how I'm doing? But then I realized that I never asked for it. I never asked for help. And so as a result, I sort of socialized people to say, oh, she's okay. She's always okay. She's the one that's helping us. So I had to start going to the people and identifying the people that had demonstrated to me that they were available, they were able. And by the way, you don't go to the wrong people, right? Don't go to the person that has already demonstrated that they're not really going to be able to help you because they don't have bandwidth to help themselves. That's okay. Everybody, there's all different kinds of people in the world, but we need to really be selective of who it is that we're going to, because we're, as the strong people, we're constantly pouring out. So it's important that we have our little short list of the persons that we feel may have the bandwidth, the ability, and the capacity to be available to us. Who are those persons that maybe over time we have been able to ask them for, just to be a sounding board, just to listen? Because that's true for most of us strong people. We don't always need a lot. We just need somebody to listen, somebody to say, you know what, I'm going to take 5 minutes out of my day and just listen to what's going on with you. Usually, quite frankly, that's good mental health, because that's what we call externalizing our emotions. We're feeling them, we're processing them, we're trying to understand them, and then we're externalizing them. That then creates more space for the capacity for those other emotions that might be a part of our experience for that particular day. So if you can, let us know, who you might want to reach out to. Is it somebody in your life that you feel that you can count on as your person, if you will? Is it your partner? There's too many people out there who in some ways are lonelier in relationships than they are outside of relationships. But if you're one of the fortunate ones like myself that has a partner that you can really process with, then use that as a resource to you. Don't hold on to your emotions and not share what you're doing because perhaps over time you have presented as if you don't really need anything. This is not the time for that. It really isn't. This is the time for us as human beings to demonstrate the capacity for us as human beings. We're all in this together for sure. And part of our humanity is to be able to feel, be able to help, be able to support, be able to affirm each other, and be able to grow through this, right? That's all very, very important. I said last night, are you willing and able to cut yourself or somebody else some slack during this period of time? And I don't know, we haven't talked about the slack in a long time, but slack stands for how you show up and how you lead, right? And then how you acknowledge how far you come or acknowledge someone else. And then are you committed to the process? And finally, are you kind, right? Kindness goes a long way. And if you're not being kind, then maybe even acknowledging if you're just having a bad day, it's not that person, and then sort of cycle back and have a different kind of conversation with them. Dr. Gale says a good indication of whether a person is good for growth of you as a person is whether, let me say that again, a good indication of whether a person is good for you, I guess, or good growth for you as a person, is their authentic feelings of being supportive. Yeah, well, absolutely. I think that absolutely goes without saying. But I also think that sometimes because people are going through their own pain and own grief and own longing and missing the life that they had, oftentimes we can't judge people. Sometimes they're just not able to be available to us. So we have to have multiple persons that can be available to us. And trying, quite frankly, to be authentic can be helpful. We say here at Faith Inc., truth, trust, and transparency leads to transformational breakthroughs. Are you being able to be truthful with yourself and others? Are you transparent? Or, that builds trust. And then are you transparent? This is what this platform is all about. if we can be transparent in this community that we're creating, and we love for you to pass this on to other people, share it with other people so that they can't watch in real time, that they can experience this as well, and they can pass it on. We don't want to keep all this goodness to ourselves. We want to pass it on to everyone else. So we're going to take a quick break for our sponsors, and we'll be right back. So stay with us. Well, we are back, and this is Dr. RG. This has been the Courageous Conversations Connect space, where we're having our quarantine talks every single Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Please let everyone know that this is where we are. This is where we create our community for our crew, connecting relationships for epic wins. We had a great conversation today about fear and phobias and who looks out for the strong one. How do we deal with our grief and our loss in a time where it's very difficult because we're still in the midst of a pandemic? And so, let everyone know that this is where we are, this is what we're doing, and we're going to continue these conversations in a way that hopefully helps people to heal. Because in order to heal, you have to feel, but you cannot heal what you don't reveal. So we'll have a beautiful day on purpose, from our heart to yours. We love you, and there's nothing you can do about it.